Hi guys, Reviewz here, bringing you this game review of The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy. This is a game that caused quite a lot of frustrations because it was quite difficult, even by the standards of games in the early 90s. You only had a certain number of lives and you couldn't directly attack enemies, so just by completing a quest it made you feel like you had accomplished a major achievement. Well, I hope you enjoy this review on The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy. The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy, or as it was known outside of Europe and Australia, Fantastic Dizzy, is a platforming video game developed by the Oliver twins and published by Codemasters, released in 1991. The game was released on several different systems, including the NES, Mega Drive, Amiga and the Master System. For the purpose of this review, I'm looking at the NES version of the game. The game focuses on Dizzy, an anthropomorphic egg who goes on an adventure to rescue his girlfriend Daisy from the evil wizard Zax, who has cast a spell on Dizzy's people, the Yolk Folk. It is up to Dizzy to save his people and rescue his girlfriend from Zax's castle in the sky. The game is part of the Dizzy series and contains all 16 characters from the franchise, such as Good Wizard Theodore, Blackheart the Pirate, Prince Clumsy and Seamus the Leprechaun. Dizzy has to interact with these characters in order to gain items to progress through the game. Dizzy can carry up to 3 items like keys and objects in order to solve puzzles. These objects can be traded with other characters like Blackheart or placed in certain locations in order to open up new areas. The game is a side-scroller, but most areas do not scroll vertically. Instead, when Dizzy climbs a ladder or jumps off screen, a new screen is loaded. The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy also included an early incarnation of the day-night cycle that was occasionally loaded between screens. There are a number of locations for Dizzy to visit, like the Yolk Folk Treehouse Complex, the city of Keldor, a pirate ship, the grasslands, and finally Zax's Cloud Castle, where Dizzy must collect a certain number of stars, either 100 or 250 depending on the version of the game, scattered throughout the game in order to be granted access to the final confrontation with Zax, which is guarded by an electric door. At certain points in the game, Dizzy can compete in mini-games in order to continue, such as the minecarts, where Dizzy must avoid enemies and dead ends, Bubble Trouble, where Dizzy must reach a small island by riding bubbles underwater before running out of oxygen, and Dizzy Down the Rapids, where Dizzy rides down a river in a barrel, avoiding a pursuing troll and other natural hazards, in order to get a star at the end. Both Dizzy Down the Rapids and Bubble Trouble were adapted into standalone titles, while the Dizzy Down the Rapids minigame was omitted from several versions of the Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy, including the Mega Drive and PC releases. Though the game is primarily described as a platformer, the gameplay has certain elements that make it different from most platforming games. For example, Dizzy is vulnerable to all enemies and cannot defeat them. Furthermore, the various mini-games are based on older games in the series like Bubble Dizzy, so the game can be seen as more of a synthesis of the previous titles in the franchise, where the player can find a lot of familiar puzzles, like finding keys for elevators, and locations like the mines and the deep sea. The music in this game is representative of the 8-bit era, with memorable tunes that are easily recognisable. This game is very hard and often frustrating, since Dizzy can't defend himself, and it is very easy to quickly lose all of your lives. You have to tread on eggshells, no pun intended, to get through this game as threats come from all sides. I recommend you play this game with a walkthrough guide, otherwise you'll get lost incredibly quickly and likely give up. Unless you have a guide at your disposal, it'll take you a long time to figure out who to give a certain item to, or where to place it in order to progress through the game. Another issue I have is that with many games during this time, there were no in-game maps. Instead, an illustrated map was provided with the release, showing you where the locations were. However, these maps didn't correspond to the in-game geography, and I would have much preferred a map built into the game to show me where I was going. The final battle with Zax is also a non-event, where it simply involves you having to dodge one of his spell attacks in order to win. However, with all I've said about this game, it is still a classic, with a memorable protagonist. The Adventures of Dizzy is a game that should be remembered by all. Well, that was my review on The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy. If you like what you saw, please leave a comment in the section below, as I'd like to hear your thoughts on this game. Rate this video, and if you're new to my work, please subscribe to my channel because it doesn't cost you anything. And I'd also like to give a shout out to SuperCrazyreviews, as they're just getting started and could use all the support they can get. I'll link you to the channel description below. Well, until next time, peace out guys.